Thanks for joining us today while Colonel Schlosser talks about leading in adversity. I think that's something that we're all struggling with right now as we're all working from home and we are trying to get used to everything that's going on. So just a little background, Colonel Schlosser became the 11th commander of the Engineer Research and Development Center, or ERDC, in Vicksburg on September 6, 2019. She is the first female to have this position. She received her commission as an engineer officer from the University of Montana in 1994, and she's a graduate of the Engineer Officer Basic and Advanced Courses, the Command and General Staff College, the Inspector General School, and the United States Army War College. So lots of different things. She holds a master's degree in public administration as well as strategic studies, and her awards and decorations include the Legion of Merit Medal, Bronze Star Medal with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal with 4 OLC, the Joint Service Commendation Medal, the Army Commendation Medal with 1 OLC, and the OIF and OEF campaign medals. She's probably added some more since this press release came out. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you now, Colonel.
All righty. So first, good morning, and thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me come and talk with you. And I did not catch our host name. Can I get your name from you?
Yes, sorry. I'm Jennifer Sloan Ziegler. I am the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers, Mississippi section, and you worked with my president-elect Edith to set this up.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. So thank you for having me. And as we're talking about, leading in adversity is particularly, it's a timely thing right now because we're working through adversity. So as I was thinking about what to talk about, I figured that's the direction I would go because it is timely. And it's easier for me to talk about leadership things than engineering things, frankly. And leadership is one that wherever you are, you always have the opportunity to be a leader or to be thrust into a leadership position, even if you don't want to be. So the couple types of adversity kind of fall into two bins for me. The first is crisis, where just bad things happen. So the one I'll talk about, so I'm going to talk crisis and then I'll talk long-term adversity and lead through the longer terms. So I was a battalion executive officer, which is second in command in Mosul, Iraq. My battalion was just coming into country, or relieving the 94th Engineer Battalion as they were getting ready to go home. So we'd been in country for about 3 days. And I was doing the transition with, at the time, Major Jeff Murphy, who I found out last week actually works at GRL now. So Murph and I were talking about what changes need to happen, what things I need to get ready to do. And there was a huge explosion and things came off the walls and dust flew everywhere. And we both took off running for the Tactical Operations Command Center because we didn't know what had happened. Turns out it was one of our combined convoys that had been hit by a gigantic vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. Welcome to crisis. So could not have happened at a better or a worse time, frankly. We have 2 battalions. We both had our own ways of doing things. We were coming together, we were trying to figure ourselves out. So there was confusion there. And some of it was who was in charge, because 94th was giving over authority to us. So we immediately had to figure out what to do next because we had folks literally under fire and needing immediate decisions. So one of the biggest things in leading through a crisis like that is you have to start out being prepared. You have to be ready for the worst things that can happen. You have to already know kind of what your roles are in just your regular duties. So the more prepared you are, the better you'll react in crisis because you just kind of go into an autopilot. A couple things that you got to always remember is, you know, keep your people focused, keep them on their job, get them doing what they need to do, because the more that they can focus, the better that they can maintain their control. Because in crisis, one of the first things is the feeling of being out of control, of not knowing what's going on and trying to get that control back. So if you can get your folks focused on something as simple as typing a message, it helps them stay centered. But you have to also recognize that some of your folks won't be able to cope with it. And for those folks, don't look on them. Not everybody can do it, and not everybody can do it in every situation. So if you have someone who is clearly not able to cope with the situation, get them out of there. Just, you know, kindly and quickly get them to a different situation, send them on another task, because you don't want that panicked feeling to start to take over. And if you find that you as the leader are having a tough time coping, do the same thing. Remove yourself. Grab the next person in charge. And you don't have to say, I'm panicking, I'm hyperventilating, I can't take it, I'm out. Go to the bathroom. Grab the next person in charge. Give them the guidance that you have. And then go and take a minute. Go to the bathroom. Go walk around. Go do something else that can help you focus, because as the leader, you're the rock that they're looking to. And if you start to panic, then it all just goes downhill very, very quickly. And so be prepared to take other folks out of the room and send them on other tasks. Be prepared to take yourself out of the room if you need to. If you find that, like, I can't deal with this for a second, turn it over and go give yourself that minute. It's okay. And then know that the situation is going to change very quickly. That what you think minute to minute could change, and be ready to adapt to that, but make decisions. A bad decision on time is better than a good decision too late. Make a decision, get moving in that direction. If the situation changes, you realize it's not a good decision, make another decision. And just go moment to moment with those decisions, making sure that you're getting towards that end goal of reestablishing calm, reestablishing order, getting your people, in our case, it was getting our people out of danger, getting the help to them, as well as figuring out how to help them stabilize their situation. Because in our case in Iraq, we actually had drones up, so we could see what was happening on the ground, and we could help the on-the-ground commander reestablish control by letting them know who was where. It's just making those decisions moment to moment, and know that you're not going to have all the information that you need. But just keep moving. So that's leading in a crisis, and that's usually over in a matter of hours or days. And so you kind of know that you have an end point. For us, we knew that as soon as we had our folks secure and back into the base and turned over to the healthcare folks or back with us, that immediate crisis was over. And then we could deal with the follow-on. So short-term crises, they're much more intense. They're over fairly quickly. The other one that we're doing right now is this long-term adversity, where who knows when we're going to be back to what we used to consider normal. And I've done away with the new normal because it's constant. So I'm just going with the next normal. So we're now in the next normal. And next week we'll be in the next one. So the long-term adversity, you have to really look at how you're taking care of your people, because your people are stressed. You're stressed, your people are stressed. And probably the word that comes to me the most is empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, because what works for you might not work for your folks. And so you have to learn your folks, get to know who they are, and then put yourselves in their position. So for me, I'm married. We don't have any kids. We've got, a big house, and we've got 2.5 acres that we can get around on. I get lots of information from my headquarters. So for me, it's far less stressful. But I'm like, no, it's kind of not that abnormal that I work, and my husband understands. He knows I'm on this WebEx, so he's outside messing around in the garden. But I have to be able to empathize with my folks who have 4 kids in an apartment, and maybe their spouse is not working and they don't have as much information, and they're worried because their kids are out of school. They're now head cook and bottle washer. They're the lunch lady. They're the substitute teacher. They're trying to do their job. I have to be able to look at that and go, okay, we need to step back a little bit and figure out what other people are going through. Because if I just look at it from my lens, I'm like, do your job, get on with yourself. And that's not leadership. That's leading myself. That's great. I can do that all day long. But so really, empathy is one of the things that has got to be the bedrock of leading in a crisis or an adversity, is understanding or trying to understand what someone else is going through. The big thing, again, kind of going back to preparedness, surround yourself with smart people and then listen to them. I will never claim to be the smartest person in the room. At ERDC, I am not the smartest person on 750 acres. That's okay. I know where my smart people are. I know how to go find them. And then I listen to them. I may not always agree with them, but I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to take their advice into account for every decision that I'm making. Because the more of us that are thinking about a problem, the better off we're going to be. And then making those decisions in a long-term adversity, adverse situation, you've got time. Be deliberate. Be patient. Explain to your folks that, again, things are going to change. We're going to make decisions today that don't make any sense next week. But be deliberate and patient about those things. Don't try to rush to a solution when there may not be a solution available yet. In this case, I tell my folks all the time, I don't know when we're coming back, but here are the ways I'm making my decisions towards coming back. I share, so another one, share information. This is not a situation where information is power. Every bit of information I get, I try to send out to my folks. I send them briefings straight from headquarters, unedited. Like if I have the information, I'll share it, because I never know what piece of information I have might be valuable to someone else. And what information, not only could it be valuable to someone else, but they could use that information to make me smarter and to give me better decision-making capabilities. So if you have information, share it. You never know how valuable it might be to someone that you never even knew Bob needed it. Bob got that information and helped you make a brilliant decision. So always be willing to share. Be willing to be wrong. And if you're wrong, fess up. Okay, I made a bad decision. That decision didn't work out well. We're moving on. And do that publicly, because again, that's information you folks need too, is that to know that you're willing to be wrong, because then that gives them the ability to be wrong. That gives them the ability to come back to you and say, hey boss, I thought I was going to be able to handle, homeschooling 4 elementary kids and doing my job. I can't. I need a break. Can I have next Friday off? Can I work half days? And it allows folks the ability to also be vulnerable. So as a leader, I got it that, you want to be all powerful and Superman or Wonder Woman, but there is goodness in showing your folks that you are also vulnerable and you're also willing to admit to not making the best decisions. Ask questions. Ask for your folks, what are their concerns? What questions do they have? Because that goes back to the empathy piece of the more you know what your folks are concerned about, the better you can help them cope through that, and the stronger your organization will be. The worst thing that can happen when dealing through any kind of an adverse situation, either a short crisis or a longer term adverse situation like we're in now, is to not be talking to one another. It's for your folks to be harboring fears that they don't think they can bring to you, and so you can't help them, because the more that they're harboring those fears, the less that they can focus on their missions and getting things done. And just keep learning. As you compile more facts, you get a feeling for what's right. Keep learning and just keep going. Because eventually this too shall pass. And there are going to be some organizations that come out of this and they're a wreck because people weren't talking to one another. They lost touch. They felt disconnected. They felt that their leadership, their management didn't care about anything but getting the work done. And then there's going to be organizations that come out of this stronger, where the people look around and go, my leaders really care. My leaders took the time to talk to me. They took the time to show that they were also not having the best time, or that life goes on. So I think that there's going to be opportunities for both of those. And my hope is that as I'm helping lead, and oh, by the way, no person leads alone. So don't think that you're the only person leading. It's like a Peloton. No one gets to the front of the pack without the help of a whole bunch of other folks. So when I talk about leading ERDC, I'm leading ERDC with some incredibly capable lab directors, lab deputies, division chiefs, branch chiefs. So there's a whole bunch of folks that are responsible for leading through adversity. It's not just one person. One person can kind of set the direction and set the tone, but it takes every level. And you can have a lower level leader that makes it for you or breaks it for you. So that's almost missed that one. That, yeah, leading, it's a team sport. You got to have everybody buy in. And my hope as one of the leaders in ERDC is that we're going to come through this knowing one another better, ironically, because we WebExed and Zoomed, although I know we're not supposed to Zoom. I do know that there's like this subversive Zoom crowd that likes it better than WebEx or the Teams, teleconferences, although if I never have another teleconference, I'd be okay. I'm a people. I'd like to rather be in the room with others. But strangely, I've gotten more messages about how people feel more connected to their teammates because they talk. They have no choice but to talk on teleconferences. They can't just make the assumption that someone down the hall knows what they're doing. So there's been a lot more talking. So I'm hoping that ERDC is in the second category, that we come through this and we're stronger for having gone through this situation and that we're better for it. And with that, I think I've talked for like 20 minutes straight, so I'm going to stop talking. We have a sip of tea, and I will open up if there are any questions. And just so y'all know, I can see your names across the bottom, so I'm more than happy to start conversations in the middle of this too. And ask like Andy Martin what he's worried about these days, what he's thinking about. So either I'm not hearing folks or y'all have lost interest in me.
I have a question.
Okay, Andy's trying to talk on WebEx, but it's apparently not working for him. But we'll start
if you
on the
want to
phone
put your
first.
question in the chat, we can ask that.
This is one of the reasons that I love to hate WebEx. I'm no good at it.
This is Jennifer. Can you talk about how, what are some ways that, oh, wait, Andy has a question. As a leader, how do you prepare future leaders to lead in adversity?
So I think there's similar ways that you teach future leaders how to do anything, you show by example, and then you let them try and let them grow. So that's kind of where in the crisis mode, where I said, if as a leader, if I know that I can't quite take this right now, or that I'm willing to be wrong, then I'm teaching my leaders that it's okay to step outside for a second, or it's okay to be wrong and then come back and make a correction. I think that's one of the most valuable things that my leaders taught me, was to not be afraid to make a decision because I could be wrong. And so if I'm able to show my leaders that I'm making decisions, I'm moving out, I'm trying to do the right things, but I'm not always right, then they learn, just make decisions. Gather your smart folks around, make as many good decisions as you can. But it's okay to not be perfect. And then put your leaders in situations where they can learn and they grow. And one of the best things, so I'm a big fan of the Army. Clearly, I stuck around. So some of my favorite jobs were as the executive officer to a commander, because I was second in command, and if the commander wasn't there, then I was the commander. And so as a commander, I have a deputy now, and I've had many XOs that if I'm on leave or I'm doing something else, my XO has it, and that's their chance to practice being a leader. So if you have opportunities where you can put your next in line, you can put someone else into a position that normally you would take. General Semonite's coming, and normally you'd give the brief. Let one of your subordinates give the brief. It's okay. Just be there, in the wings for backup if they need you there. But give people those opportunities to feel uncomfortable and to feel that welling up of, I don't know what to do next, because those are all good skills to kind of take on. And then, so I can now see the chat. So hopefully, did that help, Andy? All right. And then I see one from Lucy. Do you think Army leadership training, military and civilian, will change following the pandemic? I think in some ways it will. That first we need to figure out how do we train and socially distance and do all those things. So the basic training units, they're figuring that out now. But how do they train safely? And then there's also that element of, how do you train someone to lead virtually? This is not something, this is not normal. That, normally as a military commander, I bring my folks into a formation, I give them the guidance, they go forth, I watch them do what they're doing, I make corrections as I'm seeing how they're doing things. And, I'm physically seeing my folks all the time. Leading virtually, I'm not seeing my folks, I'm not being able to see their welfare, I'm not able to see what they're doing every day. So that's a strange thing for both military and civilian side, is figuring out how do you lead from a pretty good distance. And I'd say in wartime, we've done that because you lead over the radio. But this day-to-day leadership, I think that we're going to have to make some changes to accommodate how do we do virtual leadership? And then what's the balance? So next week, I'm bringing all my military officers in because I haven't seen them in 8 weeks. And there'll be no hugging. There might be some elbow bumping and that. We'll be in the room and we'll follow all the safety protocols. But as a commander, I want to lay eyes on my soldiers. And even if it's every few weeks or figure out what battle rhythm, but I do think that it'll change following this. And society at large will change. We used to always go in for, the handshake or a hug and, very open, and it's sad to me to see, some caution in everybody's faces as we meet new people. So I think that we are going to have to figure out how to do this differently. And I've got, how do you address questions, comments from frontline troops and how they feel less important because they have to come to work because they have a hands-on job while managers are able to work mostly from home? Okay, that's actually one that I'm pretty comfortable with. I go to the office too. So when this first started, until Mississippi did the stay-at-home order, I was at the office every day. And because my frontline troops, are those folks who have to come in. There's security guys were the primary ones because we sent most everybody else home, even if I had to send them home on admin leave. It was the right thing to do at the time, and we're bringing them back in now. And so probably starting next week, I'll be back in the office every day. The only reason I came home for the telework, I do not like teleworking. I'm a squirrel chaser from the old school. So if I'm at home, I'm like, oh, I could just do this one little thing and it'll be, and I don't like it. And I like being around the people I'm supposed to be leading. So for me, I put myself in the same shoes as my folks that they had to come to work. I came to work. And it was only when I was trying to be respectful of Mississippi's teleworking that I limited my time. But what I did make sure to do is, again, leadership is a team sport. So I was in the office Monday and Wednesdays. Dr. Fleming's in the office Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Dr. Pittman came in the office on Fridays. And that way, every day there was a senior leader on campus to make sure that we were there, because I have heard and read and been told about folks who feel like they're not as important because they have to keep going in and their managers are safe at home. And I think that's lousy. And one of the first things I learned in the Army was to never ask my soldiers to do something I wouldn't do. I don't like cleaning porta-johns. I have cleaned porta-johns alongside my soldiers because if I won't do it, how can I ask them to do it? So that's kind of a long answer to my personal opinion is I'm going to be there with them as much as I can. And for the managers, because so in fairness, some managers weren't allowed to be here. But I kind of kicked everybody off of all of our campuses. I said, go home and telework. And like I said, I put a lot of folks on admin leave because they didn't have the ability to telework. But for the managers who are over those guys, if I was told that my folks had to keep coming to work and I had to telework, I would fight that. I would consider myself mission essential as well to be a leader to my folks who were on those front lines. I feel pretty passionately about not asking someone to do something I wouldn't do. So hopefully that one answers that. Yeah, I feel for folks who are feeling abandoned. So I'll go to Ken. In leading under adverse conditions, how do you best assess the quality of incomplete and rapidly changing information available to work from? Ooh. The best I can. And I ask a lot of questions. That if I have information that I'm not the expert on, and so some of the ways I'm making decisions right now are with our trending models. I am not a modeler. And so I ask a lot of questions of our modelers. What does this mean? What should I be learning for this? What should I be taking away from this? And so if I can make myself smarter by using other people's brains, I'm all about crowdsourcing. I will use everybody's brain around me to try to make a better decision. And then at some point, though, you do what you think is right. When this all started, we were watching things ramp up and everybody's talking about, should we telework, vulnerable populations, how do we do it? But there was a lot of incompleteness with our information. And we had folks, they went on spring break, and the Thursday before they were supposed to come back, there was enough information out there, still incomplete, still didn't have guidance, but I made the call that I thought was right. And I told them that everybody who had gone on spring break or had immediate family members who went on spring break, that I needed them to telework for 2 weeks. And then we got into the next week and things kept ramping up. And by Wednesday, I told everybody else that I needed them. We were going to go to pretty much mandatory telework for everybody who could. It was incomplete information, but I did what felt right and that I was willing to defend if someone asked me about. But if CNN said, why'd you send all your people home? I was willing to defend that. So I go with getting as much as I can, get as many opinions as I can, and then I do what I feel is right, and I feel that I can defend. Hopefully but yeah. And I am always willing to be wrong. I balance my books. I tell my folks all the time, I balance my books that I get to be right once a week and wrong once a day. So that gives me full comfort that I can make a decision. And if I need to change it, I can change it. And my ego is not tied to it at all, because especially with incomplete information. And these days we're getting more information, but there's still a lot of unknowns out there. So it's still kind of tough to know that you're doing exactly the right thing. You'll never do exactly the right thing. You just do your best. So what are some of the things you're doing to keep your team motivated and mission focused during this time? I've told them meetings will continue till morale improves. No, I would never do that. So I talk to them. And so I guess there's two different teams for me. There's the folks who work directly for me, which is not too many folks. It's, 10 or so. We talk fairly frequently so that they know, and they're senior folks, so they already know what they're doing and they're running their stuff. But we talk regularly to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then there's the bigger ERDC team, which is probably where I've spent more of my efforts, because again, more information I get out, the better it is. So when everything started, we were doing twice a day teleconferences and WebExes with headquarters USACs. And they were putting out the information that they had coming out of DC. And so I started doing daily updates to my folks, and I would attach the headquarters briefings to those updates, unedited. I would tell them what I thought those briefings meant and where I thought we were going and what General Semonite was talking about. And then fortunately, I already had established a pretty good communication of commander suggestion and question box. And so folks would ask me questions, and I would answer those questions in those daily updates. And I think I've been told by enough folks that they appreciate that. And I was surprised to find out that I was the first commander that anybody remembered who would answer publicly. And I think that's really important. So for the bigger ERDC team, I gave every bit of information I had every single day. And then as things started to kind of calm down a little bit, we dropped the weekend meetings, so I dropped my weekend notes. And then a couple weeks ago, we dropped our daily meetings to 3 days a week. So my notes now go out 3 days a week, and there's less information in them, but I still send those notes out to make sure that the team knows I'm still thinking about it, I'm still providing information, I'm still here to answer questions that they need. And so for me, a couple of things that keep me motivated is knowing I'm doing good things and knowing that what I'm doing matters. And so my motivation to keep the team mission focused is let them know that they matter. They matter to me, and that's how I will always send my notes. I will always answer their questions. So for my small team, we talk a lot. For my big team, I just send as much communication as I can without being a pest. So that's one thing, is that I know there are folks who say you can't over communicate. Yes, you can. It reminds me of when I was a kid. So I'm the youngest of three sisters. So Shelly got, my oldest sister, she got the seat behind the driver's seat. My middle sister Jan got the seat behind my mom. I got the middle. And by the end of the car ride, you can over communicate, and you just get to the point where you're just like, stop touching me, stop sending me notes that don't have the information. And that's why I've leaned back, and I'm now sending information, but I'm not sending it at such a pace that still nothing to report. All right, talk to you tomorrow. Still nothing to report. So I think that sometimes as a leader, you have to also gauge when there's been enough information so that you don't turn into a pest and people just turn you off, because that can happen too. So looks like we're about out of questions, but if there are questions, I'll hang around. If there's no questions, again, like I said, kind of know when to stop communicating. Okay, I would say, please don't just ask questions because you feel obligated. I'm totally okay. Books I'd recommend for personal development and leadership. So one of my favorite books is, and it's a fast, funny read, but it was a great one for me. I read it as a major, so kind of that middle level leadership was the 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. And it's a funny book. It's very quick. But it was one that made a huge impact on me because the basic premise is that tasks are monkeys. And if as a manager you take all of the tasks and now you're doing all of the monkey wrangling, your people are off doing something else because you're taking care of all of their monkeys. I read half the book out loud to my husband because it was absolutely me. And he still on occasion calls me the best monkey hunter around. So that was an important lesson for me to learn, was that it's okay. You have to give tasks out and you have to let someone else be responsible for them, or you're doing all the work and there's no reason for you to have a staff. But that's a tough one. Is, you know, I said, it's one of those temptations of, well, I know it'll take me 5 minutes to do it. And so I'll just do it myself and it'll be done. Okay, well, but then nobody gained anything. Kind of going back to the, how do you train the next future leaders? Have them put the brief together. It's going to take them 2-3 hours, noted. It's going to take you an hour to, you know, get them back where you wanted them. But they've learned, and they're better ready next time that you have a brief that, all right, remember everything we did last time? All right, this time it's only going to take you an hour, and it's only going to take me 15 minutes to tweak it the way I want it. And so some of that is, you know, learning that you have to train the next generation, even if it takes a little bit more time. Another one, and this one's a long one, and God help me with old age, Once an Eagle. Thank you. So Once an Eagle is a longer book by far, but the leadership lessons, it's basically 2 officers who grow up kind of in the same time period. They're peers, they're rivals, I'm not sure were ever quite friends, but it shows that one has that empathetic leadership style and he does the right things, and he's not quite as successful, but he knows who he is and he learns the right things. And the other one shows the right things to his senior leaders and is somewhat of a grasper and a climber and doesn't take care of his folks, but he himself is successful. And so just seeing how those 2 leadership and officership styles played out, that, you know, do you want to be the guy who is personally successful and nobody underneath them has any respect, but, well, you know, you made colonel, you made 1 star, or do you want to be the guy that does the right things and takes care of the soldiers and is much beloved, and at the end of the time knows that they took care of their folks and can always be proud of their service? So Once an Eagle is a much longer read, but to me it had a lot of really valuable leadership lessons. So those are probably 2 of my favorite ones that I go back to from time to time. I need to read Once an Eagle again, but it's
Awesome, thanks. Does anybody have any other questions they would like to ask? I don't see any and I don't hear any. So thank you so much, Colonel Schlosser, for speaking to us today. Hopefully everybody got something out of it. I know I personally got a lot out of this. If anybody has any other questions that they would like answered, I'm happy to pass those on if you think about something. Otherwise, if that's it, I hope that everybody has a great Memorial Day, and that you get to spend some more time with your family, and maybe hopefully do something a little bit fun, maybe before the rain comes in for the next three weeks.
absolutely. So thank you guys again, and also if you think of questions, please feel free to pass along. Like I said, I answer whatever questions are thrown my way to the best of my ability and as honestly as I possibly can. So if you have any other questions, just shoot me a note, shoot Jennifer, Edith a note, and they'll get it to me. And please take care of yourselves in these strange times. And, you know, I'll end on my public service announcement that, as I've told my folks at Arctic, I'm afraid that we're going to see the second spike more quickly than we thought. And that's just from watching behavior that people are just sick of it. And I'm with them 100%, that folks just want it to be done. And so they're going back to how it used to be, and that's not safe. So please, when you're out and about, wear your mask. And the mask is a courteous thing. My mask is about me, not you, but there is also a little bit of protection in wearing your mask. But wash your hands, be conscious of who you're around and how many folks you're around. So please don't be part of the second spike, which I'm afraid is coming. So just take care of yourselves and your families, and know that this too shall pass. And it's okay. It'll be over soon enough. And don't do anything that puts you in harm's way because you're just tired of being in the pandemic. And with that, I hope everybody has a lovely Memorial Day. I don't know if it's going to rain or not, but get outside, spend time with your families, enjoy things. Just because there's a pandemic doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy life. It just means you don't get to enjoy life with as many other people as closely as you used to. So thank you guys for having me.
Thanks.
All righty.